Folks, welcome to the social race ahead of the Bwoah Racing League Season 7. I'm your host, as always, Zetaxter, and it's been a while, clearly, on the RoadRunner Racing Esports channel. Hopefully, everything is going as planned. Of course, I'll be doing my little checks along the way since I'm riding it solo. And, of course, huge props to those watching later, after the fact, after the stream itself, who check back in and take the time out to watch the race. We'll be heading straight into the lobby, straight into short qualifying ahead of a 50% race distance race. And of course, it is around the Losail International Circuit at Qatar. Of course, let's not forget this is a social race, so we might not see some of these drivers compete heading into season 7. But regardless, we got 10 drivers out on track, or will be out on track momentarily. Quick checks, and we'll be good to go, folks. Don't go anywhere as you come in now during the live, or maybe thereafter. Make sure you hit that like, hit that subscribe if you haven't already, and drop in the chat or in the comments who do you think will end up in qualifying at the very tippy top, or perhaps even who the race win itself. There we go, folks. We've got our first couple of drivers ahead of Season 7 coming out on track. This is the first time we are on the F1 23 game. This is the first time we're getting to see what some of these drivers can deliver, can or cannot deliver, mind you. And of course, familiar names here in the Bwoah Racing League, hosted by RoadRunner Racing Esports. I'm your host, Zetaxter. If you're tuning in, we will be running races from next weekend onwards. It's a 12-race calendar, a very short one compared to the ones we've done before, in the interest to wrap it up ahead of the end of the year itself. So we'll be wrapping it up in December, starting next week. So if you haven't already signed up, make sure you head to the link in description. And if you don't find a link in the description, you can just head over to any of our other socials and you'll find it there in our bios. Of course, now all eyes on that 18-minute short qualifying ahead of the 50% race distance race. We got 10 drivers out on track. My fellow co-commentator for the last 2 seasons is out on track as well. We've talked about this multiple times, him and me, about how one day we might just see him out on track. He's decided to go out on track for the social race. It is quite late where he is as right now. But we do have a relatively new name in Nabil. Yep. Who's still in the pits. He'll be out and about soon enough. Let's jump on to some of these drivers who are heating up their tires and getting ready for the first fast laps. If you already got a Sector 3 yellow, soon enough we'll have a bit of stats out on our screens. Just going over it. Might have been, I am a bit rusty from the break itself, but yeah, we've got it all. Everything we need is on our screens. And now this man, KDB, he's not only been sim racing, he's also been getting behind the wheel of a car, IRL as well, and had one race so far last month and has another one coming up next weekend, which is a junior category. That's not junior category, but moreover a novice category here in India, being hosted by JK Tire. But regardless, right now all eyes on our screens as we've got pretty much all the drivers out on track trying to set their fast lap. Two of them, of course, on and out lap of their own. You can see KDB was one of the first couple of drivers to come out on track for a fast lap, along with another who I might have forgotten. But now we're going to see the first set of lap times around Losail International Circuit. That's a 122.199 in the AlphaTauri. KDB sets it, broken by the Red Bull of Sicknig 121s. As you go in, let's not forget, you aren't seeing things, and there's nothing wrong with your eyes, folks, if you are confused by that intermediate lap time coming through from Danny Joe, Big Man Joe as we've called him for so many seasons. But yeah, the 121s is where the pace is being set by the likes of Sicknig and Envy, double-time Bwoah Racing League champion, and of course Sicknig still yet to achieve that feat, isn't it? So some of these drivers, they've been with us for a couple of seasons now, but still they haven't been able to win a championship. Maybe it is, considering a shorter calendar, maybe it is time for the underdogs to shine. Well, we'll find out once the season starts next week. But for now, Sicknig, quickest out on track. Just over 30 minutes left short qualifying. Still need to see a couple of lap times come through from some of these drivers. Two of y'all tuning in. Make sure you drop in the chat any kind of prediction whatsoever. And if you're watching this later on, drop in the comments, who do you think was really the quickest at the end of this? Steering clear of that Mercedes, by the looks of it, is KDB. As Danny Joe passes by, still on the intermediates. That's kind of a Bwoah Racing League, let's say, customary ritual, if I could say that. Usually done, in fact, by UK. But yeah, he's not out on track, is he? I could have spoke a lot about UK, but anyway, we can still talk a lot about some of these drivers who are out on track and heading into the pits for a fresh set of tires to set an even more quicker lap time in this qualifying session. But that's lap time from Sicknig still unbeaten, but for how long? Because KDB actually goes slower, surprisingly stays out. Don't know what's happening with him, but I'm pretty sure he's just getting a feel to the game itself, as well as trying to figure out where the limit is on each corner early time in this short qualifying. So he gets to do that. He's got the liberty of doing that, and as I say that, my co-commentator knocks it out of the park. Not in the comms box, but out on track. Purple sector 1, 2 and 3. Dalvin, provisional pole for now, but still early times in the short qualifying, under 12 minutes left in the session itself. And you can see some of them are setting their first lap times. In the case of Nabil as well as Dalvin, Nabil goes 5th fastest so far, has a little bit, what can I say, I think a bit of a stroll out of the track. But yeah, surprising to see Gout still yet to set a lap time. I wonder if he was the reason for the Sector 3 yellow earlier on. Regardless, he's on an out lap. You might as well stay on board with him as the rest of the drivers cool down a bit. Alright, I think I've wrapped up all the checks I'd need to do behind the mic, behind the stream itself. And of course, all eyes on Gods, as I mentioned right before leaving. Excuse me, folks, but let's stay on board, Gods. Just trying to figure out which other drivers on a fast lap. Might be KDB and Nabil as Sector 3 lights up yellow. That could have been a bit of a, fumble from the McLaren driver, but regardless, on board, Gods. He goes through Sector 2. So Qatar, just to give you all an insight of the track itself, I had a good time getting behind my sim racing wheel and around the track earlier on in the week itself, but let's touch back to that soon enough. Purple Sector 2, by Gods. Surprisingly enough, that is coming from the driver to still set a lap time in this race. 121.776 is the lap time to beat. Can he beat it is the question. Comes along the final corner, has everything he needs, but how high up the order will he place? He will be 5th fastest. 122.660 is all he can do, ahead of Nabil. So clearly Nabil has a lot cut out for him as he heads into the season itself. Horning seemingly on the back foot, carrying over from the last season. Unfortunate to see that. Hopefully he comes back stronger. Mr. Wex has a fumble, but he is attempting to heat up those tires as much as he can. He is out on an outlap, so I think we can excuse him for that. Let's not forget Davin goes even more faster, 121.459. But what I was going to point out is, let's not forget Danny Joe, 127.206. That one's on the intermediates. That lap time is on the intermediates. Goes Purple Sector 2 on his first lap on the soft tires. He'll be looking to clock in a lap time good enough for the top 3, but seemingly might just be taking it a bit more laid back around this outing. It did seem like it as he went through that straight in Sector 3. Or I might be wrong. Regardless, across the line he comes. How quick will he go? Danny Joe, 4th fastest is all he can do. 122.075 for the man in the Mercedes. The red is kicking out in that Red Bull. Quite a bit sickening. Just getting to grips with the game itself and with the car. He's gotten behind of 8 minutes, just under 8 minutes in fact, of short qualifying left. Let's not forget, and someone who I haven't spoken about yet, and we can go back to the track itself, is Thunderbird, still in the pits. I like to see him out on track at some point. It's been a while. He's been missing for about a couple of seasons now. Took a hiatus from Bwoah Racing League. It's always great to see some of these drivers take a hiatus and come back. In fact, it's always a treat because we've got their records written down, and we'll pull that up going into the first race of the season. But it is a social race, so folks, if wild chance 3 of you are watching, if you want to jump into this lobby, I don't think anything's going to restrict you. If you do, just head into Steam. You can add me as the TaxaGG, and yeah, just request to join or right click join game. You should be able to right click join game and you should be good. This is a social race, so open to all. If you do come and crash into somebody, well, you're gonna be in a fumble, in a problem. As I say that, Mr. Wex, his rear kicks out, just like you might end up being in. Regardless, onwards we go. No dirty driving in the Bwoah Racing League, or historically there hasn't been as much. Sim Racing, of course, that's Dalvin, fastest man out on track, takes a break to drop by in chat. Always a treat to see that happen. We got over 6 minutes left into short qualifying, folks, and we got only Mr. Wex and KDB out on track. Rest of them in the pits, or perhaps out on an outlap in the case of Thunderbird and Envy. Of course, Vex's lap time, I don't think he's really going for a fast lap. As I say that, he heads into the pits as expected. Why don't we stay on board with our most recent double Bwoah Racing League champion? Bit of a twitch as the car heads off track, just so much so that it causes a problem. Pretty sure you won't be happy about that, making a fumble in Sector 1. But look how quick they go through the exit of Sector 1 into Sector 2 with this long left-hander, and onwards he goes. Of course, there's a quite a bit hairpin looking corner. Hairpin pretty much. I'm trying to draw a comparison of perhaps parallels to that particular corner and the one in Canada, but probably shouldn't be attempting to do that. Let me know in the comments regardless which part of the Qatar track is your favorite, because clearly Sector 2 is Envy's favorite as he lights it up purple, trying to charge through this track to ensure he gets closer to his buddy boy Dalvin's time. And as I say that, he heads into the pits. Who goes purple Sector 2 and heads into the pits? That is Envy, because for him Sector 1 wasn't good enough. Let's say on board Thunderbird, give him a little bit of screen time, if anything. Let's not forget, this man has been on the podium multiple times in Bwoah Racing League. I believe he has won a race as well, if my memory serves me right. It's been a while since I went and really looked at the stat sheet, but regardless of all the merits of the past, it's a brand new season coming our way, folks. And this race, it's a standalone one, so they've got about 4 minutes left into short qualifying to set the quickest lap time if possible. And you can see Thunderbird a bit rusty, about 3 seconds off the pace itself in comparison to Dalvin, who's in the pits chilling as his 1 minute 21.459 lap time holds strong for provisional pole. 4 minutes left. I hope some of these drivers are coming on out and getting ready for that last couple of fast laps in an attempt to pick off pole or even a mere front row position. A Ferrari on the grass, not a rare sight. Friendly fire, since I'm a big Ferrari fan, but regardless, Mr. Vex and Gouts, hopefully we get to see a good showing from them this race and throughout the season. Of course, these aren't the cars we'll get to see them behind the wheel of heading into the 7th season of Bwoah Racing League, but regardless, maybe it will be. We don't know. They're going to be assigned drivers, and as I say that, Dalvin, I don't see his car out on track. So I'm gonna go ahead and assume he's voluntarily retired from the session. He thinks 1 minute 21.459 is good enough. It'll be hilarious if he joins me in the comms box to wrap up this qualifying session. We've talked about that so many times as well. So what are the odds he actually drops by? That'll be hilarious. Or maybe listens to this and comes back in like a minute or so, considering the lag on the stream. But yeah, 1 minute 21.459, the quickest driver out on track, Dalvin, as I mentioned. And we got 9 drivers trying to beat that lap time. Perhaps 8, considering, Thunderbird is lacking in pace. Regardless, I think he will do better in the race, considering mistakes are a rare sight from this driver, historically, at the very least. So I'm looking forward to see him in the race. You can already see he's improving on his lap times. 1 minute 23.401 now. So it's there. It's there. It doesn't go anywhere. It takes a bit of a push to get the juices going, to get the blood flowing, to make sure you're back in form in sim racing. But it's always there. But yeah, back to the boys in red, if I may. On board Gouts as he circles through into Sector 2. We've got 2 slow-moving cars in Sector 2. Giving way for the Ferrari going through, and they will be quick on their feet to get a bit of a tow, perhaps. And as I said, Sicknick has retired from this session as well. He thinks 1 minute 21.720 is worth it, is enough, and will be worthy enough to guarantee him the front row. Are they being too ambitious? Are they being overconfident? We'll find out. I mean, they got 8 drivers to prove them wrong. Can any one or any 2 of these 8 drivers actually prove them wrong? Sector 2 and 3 light up yellow for slow moving cars. We're on board Gouts. On a fast lap he was. On a fast lap he is, as he comes along the main straight. And I wonder how far up the order he can go as he comes across the line. 7th fastest he was. And by the looks of it, 7th fastest he's going to stay. 1 minute 22.660. It's now improved at all. Hopefully we don't have any game issues. 900ths of a second up on his lap time around Sector 2 for Nabil. And as he charges on, he'll be looking to get himself higher up the midfield itself. Last minute, folks. So predictions, if anything, need to roll out now. KDB just starts his fast lap time. He was already 4 tenths up on his outlap. Can you imagine being 4 tenths up on his outlap? invalidated his lap time envy, so he'll be starting a fast lap of his own. Danny Joe currently on a fast lap through Sector 1. Mr. Wax, 10th down in Sector 3, but will be able to start another lap time, if I'm not wrong. Should be able to. Yeah, he should be. Oh, in the nick of time, 10 seconds. I hope there's nobody else. Okay, Gouts, he is on a fast lap already. Sector 2 lights up. Sector 3 lights up yellow. Weird, because I don't see any cars there. Regardless, we're staying on board Gouts, who's on a fast lap. This is last lap, I'd imagine, but he heads into the pits regardless, horning on a fast lap of his own. We're just gonna wait and see how they do. Mr. Wex laps up his qualifying 6th fastest. Let's not forget the 2 drivers to set pole and on the front row. Sicknick on the front row, both retired from the session already. So it is KDB, Envy and Danny Joe's positions to be won. And as he comes along Sector 3, there is, let's hope that Williams doesn't impede him. Oh, it almost did. Thankfully it didn't. KDB still on a quick one at that. Okay, around the final corner, gets a little bit twitchy onto the curbs. And across the line, he will stay 3rd fastest. Envy, not the best of lap times, invalidated his lap time. Danny Joe wraps it up as well, stays 5th fastest. And with that, folks, with Horning's lap time not improving, at least not in Sights and Nabel, on a slow lap, back into the pits by the looks of it, we wrap up the qualifying session of this social race with Davin, as confident as he could be, scores pole position on his 2nd ever fast lap around this circuit today. Sicknick's lap time clearly good enough to lock out the front row. Didn't lock out the front row, but you know what I mean. Sicknick and Davin. Wait. I just remembered. So, for those of you who don't know, in season 6, Sicknick was kind of coached by Dalvin, so it's going to be an interesting dynamic on the front row. Just putting that out there. Which is why it made sense to say locking out the front row, regardless, not justifying it. Onwards we go. That is the end of the qualifying session. Now we head towards the race itself. Different, I'd say, a different environment altogether, considering most of these drivers haven't gotten behind the wheel of any car in this game for a while now, and hopefully we get to see some of their best racecraft, or perhaps even just getting to grips with the game once again in a race environment ahead of the season. Mistakes made in the social race is, worth dealing with, rather than mistakes made in the races itself once the season starts. So folks watching, if you made it till the end of qualifying session, outside of the live stream itself, make sure you drop in the comments who do you think, clearly gave you a treat in that qualifying session. Let's not forget, as we head into the race, for those of you watching, you can drop in your predictions heading into turn 1. Forget the race, winner, forget the podium sitters. Into turn 1, lap 1. Who do you think is going to come out on top? Alright, folks, there we go. We're out on track. 10 drivers. Drive through penalty for the. It is formation lap, if I'm not wrong. Yep, formation lap. Weird that it handed a penalty for KDB for a jump start in the formation lap, but regardless, hopefully we get this right. I believe formation lap has been, creating problems for lobbies ahead. Ahead of this season itself, we'll be mindful of this heading into the races. But for today, I think KDB will have to serve that penalty at some capacity. I don't know how it's going to be dealt with. But regardless, we can always, just deduct that time from his overall race time at the end of the race itself. Apologies, folks. Just sending the links around. But of course, formation lap is actually one of my favorite laps, believe it or not, because it's the steady flow of the cars around the track that we're gonna witness each one of them race through for the next 29 laps, and you get a hint at really whose mentals are in pristine condition, if anything, who are just locked into their objectives for the race. Maybe I'm exaggerating it a bit, or perhaps even more. Regardless, we get to see some of these drivers really do well. But KDB heads into the pits. I wonder, I did see him glitch as well quite a bit. Could be an issue on his front. Regardless, we can see our front row drivers on the front row head on to the grid now as KDB heads into the pits. I believe that was the drive-through penalty being served for a jump start, hilariously enough, before the not drive-through, in fact change of tires. So regardless, whatever it was, I just hope KDB has a good race. On the front row, of course, is Davin, a co-commentator from the last couple of seasons, and Sicknig lining up. And at the tail end of the pit lane is KDB, Envy on the second row, Danny Joe on the third, with not a car up ahead of him. Go ahead, UK. Go ahead, UK.
Yeah, so there's an issue with KDB's game, and then he got a drive-through. Yeah, he got a drive-through unnecessarily, and then now he can drive off into the distance.
Oh, what?
That's the restarting for everyone else. So, yeah. So we'll be restarting the lobby.
Alright, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, formation lap issues continue in this game. So with that, folks, as KDB rides off into the distance, as UK said, and as he goes into the markers out on track, we'll be back after a short break and once the lobby is up for the race. Alright folks, we should be good. We should be back around the circuit of Losail International. Of course, let's not forget, as I mentioned before, it was the formation lap issues that persisted and caused KDB to go through whatever he went. He headed into the pits. The AI apparently took him into the pits and thereafter put him in lap number 2 of all things. Regardless, the game does end up being like that sometimes, which is why formation lap is popularly not been used in sim racing in this game. Hopefully the devs end up solving it. Regardless, the race must go on. The race must go on, and we'll be seeing the cars line up on track and off into the race itself right off the bat soon enough as the drivers pick out their tires of choice. If you're watching now during the live stream, if you're watching later, make sure you drop in the chat who do you think is going to come out on top heading into turn 1. Even if you know it, take a wild guess, a wild guess. And as we stay in the pits, perhaps get a bit of a sneak peek from the race director. We get to see some of these drivers, what kind of tire compounds they have on. You can see a relatively left field choice on the front of Horning. Not Horning? Yes, Horning himself. It did seem like it was Gouts for a moment. And of course we see Danny Joe going with the medium tires. A bit of a reverse strat there, but heading straight back. Oops. Oh, don't tell me. Oh no. Oh no, it is the race director glitch, unfortunately for me, which means I'll be back in a short bit. Unfortunate. Alright folks, after technical difficulties as you saw on my screen, we are back for the race itself, and hopefully we've not missed out too much of the action. Unfortunate, but the game plays its games on all of us. There we go, we got our standings up, and we've got all 10 drivers still out on track, which is a treat to see. But we do have our pole sitter, tumble down the order, and that could have been caused by me. I just hope it wasn't. I did join on him. Hopefully it didn't, but we'll find out soon enough. He'll be back out on track, hopefully. Right now, as an update, on lap number 3 is Envy, sitting mighty fine in the lead of the race. Danny Joe, what a climb he's made from the midfield all the way up into P2. Sicknig had a fumble as well. A race start by the looks of it. He stumbled down to P6. And of course, KDB, a disastrous start for him as well. P3 all the way down to P9. So yeah, there you have it. The drivers to benefit most out of this has got to be Gouts and Nabil, who find themselves up in a P3 now, Gouts, and up into P5 for Nabil in that McLaren. Of course, his teammate has disconnected by the looks of it, and hopefully will be back to, take on Gouts, Danny Joe and Envy, and you can see Nabil will make that pass on his teammate's AI, and up into P4 he goes. Unfortunate for Dalvin, honestly, and Sicknig up into P5 he goes, and you can already see the gaps they're pulling out between each other up in front. But the midfield is ripe with battles by the looks of it. We've got Sicknig taking on Nabil up ahead. He's got the slipstream. He is going to tuck right behind that McLaren as he weaves to the right hand side of the track. A nice and easy pass even ahead of the corner itself. Nabil's going to have to concede that position and stay put behind. You got to see that Ferrari's rear kick out just so much that Vex almost lost it and went out of the track, but he still remains on track in P6 for now. Okay, so Big Man Joe making those mediums work proper. Danny Joe up into P2 as I said earlier, and he is pushing. He is getting within a second of Envy. Soon enough he will be within a second, but back to this battle on our screens, folks. Ferrari tucks behind the McLaren, and the McLaren of Dalvin's back, which means he's going to be on a charge. A McLaren sandwich now. Vex finds himself in, and Nabil will be communicating with Dalvin, I'm sure, to ensure that Dalvin makes the pass even before Vex does. But Vex, a mighty weave to the left, and across he goes up in a P5. BRL's old guard, if anything, and almost gets into the rear of the other McLaren. Dalvin on a charge. Nabil is not giving in. He is not giving in. Seemingly the team orders not in sights, and heading into turn 1, the McLaren dives down the inside of the Ferrari, and Vex loses position to the likes of Dalvin of all, not Dalvin, yeah, Dalvin as well, and Nabil ahead of turn number 3 and 4. To think that had the biggest turnaround I'd seen for a while. Mr. Vex does not only make the pass on Dalvin, but also makes the pass on Nabil, only to lose both positions within a matter of a sector. But seemingly doesn't give in, does he? The midfield proving to be quite the stomping ground for some of these drivers. Here we go. Mr. Vex returns for those positions. He lost out just a mere sector ago. He is within 2/10 of Dalvin, who's cautiously tucking behind his teammate of Nabil. Of course, this could be the strategy that will work out. Nabil made quite the charge to make that pass not only on Dalvin, stay ahead of Dalvin, and even make that pass on Vex thereafter. So it's a treat to see Thunderbird with that 3 seconds and clearly lacking race pace. Unfortunate for him, but a clean race goes a pretty long way in the Bwoah Racing League. This is a social race with the drivers who will be competing in the Bwoah Racing League itself. And as I say that, Dalvin lines up a move on his teammate. Mr. Vex follows suit, but will Nabil allow it? Oh, Mr. Vex peeks down the inside of Dalvin even, so he is coming back not for just one position of his, but perhaps even both. But Nabil is not too far behind. We dives down the inside of Mr. Vex. They're level pegging, they're banging wheels as well. But as the Ferrari in the lead and the McLaren has to concede, Nabil will stay behind Mr. Vex for the time being, and Dalvin will have a clear track to keep his charge going. He's got a mighty gap to make up for as he takes on the race and closes in on Sicknick. Apologies to Dalvin because I'm going to go ahead and blame myself for the disconnection, considering I did join on him the second time out. But yeah, back to everybody's favorite battles, of course, is for the lead. Apologies for the commentary being a little bit distorted. That's mainly because I'm trying to figure out how to keep the stream going as smooth as it can be, and as I say that, not so smooth for Mr. Wex out on track. 3-second time penalty, but look who it is smooth for. Danny Joe weaves to the right hand side of the track and makes that pass look too easy for someone who's been away from F1 sim racing for a while now. He's been endurance racing for the longest time, but clearly it doesn't go anywhere, does it? Talent. Onwards we go. Envy now down into P2. He's going to be looking to make that charge count on Big Man Joe. Let's take a look at the ERS of some of these drivers. Sicknick will be looking to mount a charge on the guards now within a second. You can see Dalvin making that climb. He's made up 2 tenths, more than 2 tenths, 4 tenths so far to Sicknick. So he's on a charge. Sicknick will be aware of that and try his best to make a pass on the guards and leave Gouts as the problem for Dalvin to make up for. Up ahead, however, seemingly Envy is not having the greatest of times. He's losing time to the likes of Danny Joe, but he's got an ERS completely filled to the brim, if you may. And soon enough, we got to see him try his best on closing in, or even make the pass. Should be able to, but ERS has not gone anywhere for the likes of Danny Joe as well. You can see mere 2 tenths separating these two drivers, both champions in their own right in the Bwoah Racing League. Across the final corner, the same part of the track, we got to see Big Man Joe make that move on Envy, and now Envy fumbles along out of the final corner, and that's going to cost him dearly. A humongous gap opening up, almost a second's gap, 8 tenths now. Make that half a second heading into turn 1. Late braking as late as he can. Could cost him more. The wreck kicks out even more in the Alpha Tauri. And 8 tenths it's going to stay for Envy. That gap to the race leader. Sicknick, however, into turn 1. You'd reckon he'd make a move. But it's the Ferrari making a move on its own as the wreck kicks out. Bit of debris flew off of Sicknick's front wing. So I imagine that is damage for him. An end plate missing even. Unfortunate for him. It did seem like he was ready to make a move, and as opportunity turns into disaster, that gap is now leading up to a second between Gouts and Sicknick. And there we have it. Dalvin along the outside of Sicknick will be able to make that pass look mighty easy, and I think he's not having a good time out there, is he? Yep, as I suspected, an end plate is missing on that Red Bull. Sicknick's opportunity gone to a disaster. He'll be heading into the pits for a fresh front wing. Onwards for the race itself. It's only lap number 8, and you can already see a bunch of drivers racking up time penalties. 3 seconds apiece for Thunderbird, Mr. Wex, and Envy, who's currently running P2, so track limits. Gotta be wary of it, especially in a race like this with a mere 29 laps. Onwards we go. Envy does seem like he is a bit rusty, but in the midfield, Sicknick heads into the pits. Let's see how good of a pit stop he can get. Of course, moves being made on the track, so let's quickly switch to that. Dalvin 3 tenths to Gouts, and Gouts, fumble as he may, did cause Sicknick to get into the pits. Of course, things like that happen in races. Gets as close as he can to the gearbox of that Ferrari. Dalvin, how close, how confident he must be to get behind a Ferrari like that. 2 tenths, a mere 2 tenths between the two, and it's going to stay that way up until Sector 3, I'd imagine. Through Sector 2, would he be brave enough to mount a challenge onto this Ferrari in Sector 2? Perhaps not. A sitting duck in some sense for Gouts himself. 10 seconds the gap to Envy, a mere 6 tenths to Dalvin, and ERS a mere 30%, just over 30% left. Mr. Wex racks up another 3 seconds to his name, and Dalvin's gonna bide his time and wait for Gouts to fumble perhaps as he gets a little bit laid back. 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. That's track limits taking a toll on each one of these drivers here tonight around the Losail International Circuit. And you can see Gouts might just gets to go completely off track. Not what he'd expected, I'm sure. Tucks right behind momentarily, weaves to the left hand side of the track, and Davin's gonna make that pass well before the turn 1 itself. He's gonna pull off quite the gap into sector 1 as well. Half a second's gap already building up between the two. And as we head into lap number 10, things are going to get a bit stale for a spectator, I'd imagine. But let's not forget, anything can happen through the course of a race itself. And you can see the number of time penalties being racked up by some of these drivers, both at the back of the pack as well as the front. It's going to cost them heading into the race finish. All they can do is hope that the other drivers rack up similar time penalties, but unlikely, because some of them have been known to be clean drivers historically. The likes of Danny Joe, popularly known in the Bwoah Racing League to be a clean driver. A rare sight for him to pick up a penalty, let alone 2 for that matter. But if it's someone known to make a charge through the field, it's this guy. It's Envy, and he's down in P2. He's got a lot of ERS left in the tank, but level set, equal matching. Danny Joe has the same amount, a second's gap between the two. Envy's got left hanging behind, waiting for Danny Joe to fumble. Lap number 11, folks, and we've got the closest gap between two cars being the one in the lead and the one on the charge. And through sector 2, relatively slow at this time around, Danny Joe, and someone who is surely enough not slow is Sicknig on those stretch set of softs that he just quickly got switched up after that incident with Gouts. He'll be looking to make that charge through the field. He's got KDB, Mr. Wex, Nabil and Gouts to cross, and a humongous gap to make up for to KDB. I'm pretty sure some of them will be hoping for a safety car, but a safety car with such huge gaps, unlikely. But of course, drivers can fumble, and if they fumble, the safety car will come out, I'm sure. Regardless, wrong, the final corner they come. The rear kicks out once again for Envy, which is going to cost him a bit of time on the main straight. Danny Joe is going to lead this race through and through another lap, I'd imagine. But 5 tenths the gap, 4 tenths, 3 tenths. Will Envy actually pose a challenge to Danny Joe? Gets so close to making that pass. Gets as close as he can. Weaves to the right hand side of the track even, but had to tuck behind into turn 1 and through sector 1 as they've gone so far. 3 tenths the gap between the two, and that is a fight coming through. Peaks alongside him almost. Peaks, just peaks. He's going to continue to peak to the right hand side of the track, just cautiously hint at a mighty battle coming our way. Coming the way of Danny Joe even. A tenth, 2 tenths. Quite the defensive driving being done by Danny Joe. He's not using too much ERS, and neither is Envy. He's mindful of that as well. He knows Envy. He's going to bide his time and try and push Danny Joe into making a mistake. A huge gap between these two to the next driver, who is Dalvin, but he is making up that time. You can see it's reducing a tenth a sector at the very least. He's now over 11 seconds to Envy, but he's on charge nonetheless. Let's have the tire compounds on our screens. Medium tires, so Envy will be mindful of that as well. Gets as close as he can to that Mercedes, almost running into the back of it. And the rear kicks out once again as he comes along the final corner. He's deploying ERS as much as he can. I believe Danny Joe follows suit. Weaves to the right hand side of the track. He's going to make the pass, but will that pass stick heading into turn 1? Danny Joe might have just lost the lead of the race here, folks. And into turn 1 and onwards he goes. Envy retakes the lead of the race. Now 5 tenths on the medium sets, 12 lap old mediums mind you, might just be quite the feat to make up for. Perhaps he will push this to the limit as you'd imagine before he heads in to that last stint which I'm pretty sure he'd love to do on the sauce, but let's not forget, a safety car might just, switch things up. For now, 4 drivers out on track with time penalties. Envy, our race leader even, with a time penalty to his name as well. So I'm pretty sure Big Man Joe will be mindful of that. Regardless, for the folks tuning in, make sure you drop in the chat any kind of predictions for this race itself, any position of your choice. Sicknig, the sole driver on the softs, he's set the fastest lap time and time again for the last couple of laps, and now he is trailing behind KDB. Has made up quite a bit of lap time, quite a bit of time to KDB. About 4 laps has been made up, and he'll be on a charge similar to that of Dalvin, who is on a charge as well, trying to close that gap to the front runners. Big Manjo has headed into the pits, which means he will be coming out on a fresh set of softs on lap number 14. Now, could this be the play he'd want to make? 14 on lap number 14, he's going to come out ahead of Nabil, Dalvin's teammate, who is going to perhaps play the team game. Can't really play the team game while you're behind Danny Joe, I'm pretty sure. And Dalvin will be patiently waiting up ahead, hoping something unravels in the likes of a safety car. I've said safety car too many times, and clearly, the drivers, when they watch this later on, they're going to be very critical about my commentating. But it is a social race, folks, so I think I can be a bit more ambitious with my hopes. Never mind, just forget what I said for the last 60 seconds. Onwards we go. All the support in the chat for BMJ, Big Man Joe, who is Danny Joe, currently running on a fresh set of softs in 4th position. He doesn't have a competitor in sights, but his competitor in the closest sights, Nabil, has someone who is eager to make a pass. Dalvin, however, his teammate, picks up another 3-second time penalty, and that's going to rack up quite a bit. So Gouts and Danny Joe, both clean drivers. And as I say that, my oh my, if anything, 3-second time penalty on the board for Gouts. He's not going to like that one. He's not going to like that one bit. But I'll tell you, someone who's going to like what's coming our way. And across the final corner, the Ferrari's rear twitches and kicks out. Nabil can breathe a bit of fresh air until the next lap. I presumed as he weaves to the right hand side of the track, a clear opening for Mr. Wex into turn 1, but Nabil's not going to go out without a fight. Almost level pegging, they bang wheels even, but the McLaren has to concede, might just have to concede, but in through these corners is where Nabil shines, and he did attempt to shine. Almost goes completely off track there, Mr. Wex, but he does get the position up in a P5. The Ferrari goes, and a charge he continues, hoping to make up for the losses earlier this race. Of course, a disappointing, series of events for the likes of KDB, Sicknig early on in this race. We did get to see them tumble down the order. But on the return of the stream itself, we did get to see what unraveled. But yeah, Danny Joe on that fresh set of sauce, he's making them work. He's putting it to work, clearly. He makes the pass on guards, the first driver to lose a position to Danny Joe ever since he got out of the pits. Mind you, that is tire advantage clearly. And Sicknig retires from the session, and that is Sector 2 retirement, and that is a full safety car, ladies and gentlemen. Envy shoots straight into the pits, and my oh my, it happened as I said, staying on board Horning. In this part of the race, on lap number 15, Sicknig has retired from the session into Sector 2. I'd assume, somehow he lost out while being out on track and sent that car straight in to the barriers. But onwards we go. Safety car is going to put an interesting spin onto things. Let's quickly take a look at the penalties themselves. We got 6 seconds on our current race leader, Dalvin. We got 3 seconds for our current race leader, Envy, who's coming out on the fresh set of mediums. And we'll take a look at the tire compounds as well. 2-lap old sauce for Danny Joe. Could he perhaps change his mind? Oh, bit of confusion happening between the P2 and P3 runner. For now, the midfield midfield runners who've been proactively fighting each other. Nabil, Mr. Wex, and we got to pick the safety car who's yet to make a move out on track. Nabil, Mr. Wex, KDB, and the likes of even Thunderbird have pitted for fresh set of mediums. So there are going to be quite a bit of battles coming through from the back of the pack all the way to the midfield. But in the front, some of the hard runners think they're good. It's going as planned, or perhaps not. Dalvin heads into the pits finally. And where will he come out? 15 laps on those hard, 16 in fact, I assume. And so does Gouts. Gouts follows suit. Danny Joe as well. He thinks 2 laps on the sauce. Done. Quickly done. I'm going to take this pit stop while I can, because I see some of my competitors heading into the pits as well. We got to see Envy heading in for a fresh set of mediums. And what's going to go on, that's a fresh set of mediums to follow suit. 1 lap younger tires, if anything. 1 lap fresher tires, if anything, for Big Man Joe, if you'd consider it. That Envy's single lap around the safety car is going to be detrimental? I don't think so. Regardless, Envy retakes the lead of this race. He will be starting behind the safety car and dictating the pace at safety car restart. And with that, folks, let's take a short break. For the folks watching, make sure you drop in the chat. Who do you think at the safety car restart will make up the most positions? Because a safety car restart is a whole lobby reset in some sense. Let's not forget. Opportunity, without a doubt, throughout the field. But yeah, Envy leads this race. Davin close behind Danny Joe. A clean slate, no penalties to his name. Gouts to follow suit. Nabil in the top 5, running with a fresh set of mediums. Mr. Wex right behind, trying to pick that position off of Nabil. KDB in P7, P8, horning. Clean race. Heads in the pits. He'll be coming out on a fresh set of medium tires. And P9 is Thunderbird. Not a clean race, but still in it. Unlike Sicknig, who is the cause of the safety car after retirement in Sector 2. Don't go anywhere, folks, as we stay on board. Envy, our race leader. And as the safety car takes all 9 of our drivers around the track ahead of restart. Alright, folks, if I am right, the safety car should be in this lap. I have seen the times and everybody should have bunched up quite a bit in safety car in this lap. It is. So we did see Thunderbird rack up another time penalty. Regardless, it is a social race, so racking up time penalties now is better than racking up ones during the race itself. And with that, as you go through sector 3, severe collision with Gouts. 5-second penalty for Nabil. Unfortunate for him. I'm pretty sure that'll be looked at by the stewards at the end of the race itself. But for now, we've got a race in our hands as Envy comes along. The final corner, he will be dictating the pace. He will be dictating the safety car restart. He's weaving. He's trying his best to get in. Heat into his tires, and there's a McLaren spun out at the back of the pack, and that is Nabil after that 5-second time penalty. He's still weaving Envy, and he is launched. Dalvin is caught snoozing. Ferrari through the McLaren and the Mercedes. Water dive between cars. Gouts goes up at a P2. Danny Joe follows suit around the outside of the McLaren, and we are go for a full race as the Williams goes completely off track through those battles in the midfield. That is very opportunistic from Gouts, but Dalvin's coming back for that position. He is coming back for more than just one position. He is breathing down the gearbox to the likes of Danny Joe. On lap number 19, folks, with a mere 10 laps left, we've got quite the battle stirring up in this social race. Alongside almost goes Dalvin of Danny Joe. He's going to bide his time, patiently wait ahead of an opportunistic moment perhaps, but speaking of opportunity, what a way to dive between cars. Gouts very mindful of what's happening out on track. KDB comes through as well, and we can see Dalvin breathing down the gearbox of that Mercedes. Let's try and get the lap times on our screens, folks, and then you can see the wrecking out of the Ferrari just so much so. The margins between these cars, incredible. The gaps between these cars, so small, and opportunity perhaps for some, or perhaps they're just gonna tuck behind each other along the final corner. They come. Gouts is gonna be a sitting duck. No slipstream insights, but a slipstream. He gets Danny Joe right behind the Ferrari as he tucks in, weaves to the right hand side of the track. Dalvin carefully biding his time, hoping for a fumble from one of these two drivers. Down the inside goes Danny Joe, up in a P2 where he was. Dalvin's coming for a position as well. Gets behind the Ferrari as close as possible. Gives the baton of patiently waiting to KDB, who's currently sitting P5 and is going to wait for a fumble from one of these drivers up in front. We're on lap number 20, and with 9 laps left, it's anyone's guess what's going to unravel in front of us. Envy clearly pulling off quite in the distance. Big gap opened up, 2.5 seconds gap to the driver in P2. And Dalvin caught snoozing, unfortunately, at the safety car restart. Gouts trying to defend as much as he can. There was contact between the McLaren and the Ferrari, and a fumble that is KDB was waiting for. Gets alongside of the McLaren, level pegging, but into the next corner, late braking, but switcheroo, says the AlphaTauri driver. Up in a P4 he goes. Dalvin tried his best to defend that one, but in vain. It's a short end of the stick for the driver in the McLaren. Dalvin down to P5. Let's not forget Nabil at the safety car restart had a spin as well. He tumbled down the order to P7. He racked up not only a time penalty but also lost positions at safety car restart. And back on the main straight, weaving to the right hand side of the track is another McLaren. Gets alongside just enough to pull off a move into turn 1. But how long before KDB comes back for it? 2 tenths between these two formidable champions of the Bwoah Racing League. And the race continues. 8 laps left, folks. And the action just keeps on getting more better and more better. Gaps are reducing quite a bit in the midfield. A second between Gouts, half a second between Gouts, Dalvin and KDB respectively. You can see the bigger gaps forming up ahead. So Gouts is clearly fending off quite a bit of these drivers, and he's trying his best not to fumble through sector 2 and sector 3. You can see him on the edge, pushing that car to the limit as you'd expect from each one of these drivers. Along the final corner is where It's been an Achilles heel of sorts situation for Gouts, and might just repeat. History might just repeat. We're to the left hand side of the track. Davin, as Gouts moves to the right, will be able to make that pass. Where is KDB? A bit too far behind to make that pass on Gouts as well to follow suit. 1 minute 24.571 on the board for Davin to set the fastest lap time, and taking it to the limits here, KDB, as he waits patiently to charge a challenge in fact, onto Gouts in the Ferrari. Lap number 22, folks. Big gaps opening up in the front, big gaps opening up at the back, but the midfield is where it's getting heated. For y'all watching, make sure you drop in the chat any kind of prediction you might have. What may come at the end of this race? Who might be the top 3? By the looks of it, the cleanest drivers out there so far has Horning and Danny Joe. That's going to pay dividends at the end of the race, and you can see the drivers pushing it to the limit. It's costing them quite a bit of time penalties coming through for these drivers. One of them being Dalvin, having made that pass to Gouts. He is anxious to close that gap to Danny Joe. He's trying to make sure every lap of his is a qualifying lap, pushing it to the limit lap after lap. He is setting the fastest lap time on the board, and you can see how close he's gotten to Danny Joe. And the time has come for Gouts to concede that position to KDB. He makes the pass along the main straight into turn 1, as we saw Dalvin do the same thing. And Gouts, unfortunate for him, he did have that opportunistic moment at the safety car restart, but couldn't hold that position for too long and racks up a 3-second time penalty. So does Mr. Wex, as sector 1 lights up yellow. That is Thunderbird on the grass and no front wing. Williams with no front wing, a familiar sight for some, I'd say, who have gotten behind the wheel in the Bwoah Racing historically, but is not on the track right now. But yeah, Thunderbird, no front wing. That is a virtual safety car, folks. That puts things into a doozy, if I may say. Once again, of course, not as much as a safety car itself, not as much as a full safety car. We perhaps will not see any of these drivers pit. And as I say that, I just realized that we are go for racing once again. DRS has enabled, but what I had realized is Danny Joe has racked up a time penalty. He has racked up a time penalty, folks, and that is not a good sight for him. 3 seconds to his name, so it's, you know, equal rights and equal fight for the lead now, seemingly. And Dalvin, he just wants the lead on track. By the looks of it, he's closed that gap to within a second of Danny Joe. Despite having 9 seconds in time penalties, 2 of those 3-second time penalties he's picked up over the course of pushing and making this gap up to Danny Joe. And as I say that, Gouts comes back, hits back at KDB for the position. Rare kicks out for KDB, and he will have to concede that position in this lap so far. 3/10 the gap between the two. 3-second time penalty for KDB. He's still at an advantage up against Gouts on the penalty front. Horning, amidst all this, has driven a very clean race. Props to him for that clean race so far. On lap number 24, he is in P6. He's got 3.5 second gap to close in on KDB. Even if he does a half a second's gap, of time made up in the next 5 laps or so, he does get a position jump. If he doesn't, then he will have to, just be happy with where he is. He might just get a jump in position, considering Gouts has a 6-second time penalty, Dalvin has a 9-second time penalty. But enough with the penalty talk. Back to the race itself, because some of these boys, some of these gents, some of these gentlemen still yet to put on a show. You can see Dalvin across the final corner, mighty strong in comparison to some of these other drivers, and you can see on the ERS front he has an advantage. He's got DRS, slipstream, everything he needs to pull off a move we just witnessed, and up into P2 he goes on track. He just wants to finish number 1 on track, and right behind it's KDB pulling off a similar move onto Gouts, and up into P4 he goes. Gouts will have to concede and will continue to run in P5. Our race leader sitting mighty fine in P1. with a 3-second time penalty. 9 seconds to Dalvin's name, 3 seconds to Danny Joe's name. I said enough of the penalty talk and went straight back to it. Would you look at that? Because Sicknick takes some time out to drop by in chat after that unfortunate retirement in Sector 2. Would have been a treat if we got to see him continue the race, but unfortunately he couldn't. Regardless, fumbles in the social race is better than fumbles in the races when Season 7 starts. All eyes on Danny Joe. A second's gap to Dalvin. Might just be able to make up. But Dalvin on a charge of his own. In the midfield, however, that gap is the same as it was between these two. They've been trading punches. They've been switching positions for the last couple of laps now, KDB and Gouts. Mighty fine battles coming through from the midfield as well. Let's head on over to the back of the pack. In the likes of Horning, that's not the circuit, folks. That's definitely not the circuit. I think he's had a bit of a fumble through Sector 3, but he has, seemingly kept a clean race, and into turn 1 the Ferrari goes ahead, but it did seem like KDB let him through just to get slipstream, or perhaps even an advantage heading into Sector 1. He's going to tuck right behind that Ferrari to ensure he makes that pass on this lap. Let's not forget, we've got only 3 laps left, folks, ahead at the end of the race itself. We've got our lead driver in NV holding firm in the race lead, but that gap between him and Dalvin and Danny Joe now within a second of each other, respectively. And I reckon that's going to come down to 2/10, 3/10 at the final lap. He is pushing it. He is giving it everything, Dalvin, out on track. But at what cost? 12 seconds. The penalties to his name. Here comes KDB once again for that position. He lost out multiple times to Gouts, and it's incredible to see these two drivers fight it off in the midfield. Despite the starts, the safety car restart as well. 3/10 the gap to Gouts, and onwards we go. Yeah, on the main straight, you can expect KDB to mount a challenge. We've seen him do it on more than one occasion in this race itself. On more than one occasion throughout his tenure in the Bwoah Racing League, level pegging, but into turn 1, he's going to have a nose in front, and he's going to make the fast stick. But Guts is going to come back, I reckon, to hold that gap. But ERS, it's all the way down to the bottom for Gouts. And Horning, the only clean driver so far in this race, finally racks up a time penalty. Unfortunate, he would have gotten the cleanest driver award for this social race, but fails to nab it. Let's turn our attention in this last couple of laps to the top 3. Look at them. Regardless of what the penalties say, they do have the chances of fighting for the lead at the very least, folks. For the lead at the very least. All on the same set of tires. All with an opportunity to fight for the lead of the race, as I said. Davin now within a second of Envy. Danny Joe closing in, not too far behind. And with that, folks, we got Thunderbird retiring from the session in the pits, I presume. Sector 3 lights up yellow as a caution only. But up in front, Davin charging. Charging he will be. His ERS all the way down to the bottom. So is Envy's to a certain extent, but he's got a little bit in the tank still, much like Danny Joe. But Envy still has an advantage on the ERS front. Danny Joe might have just fumbled heading into turn 1, because that gap's enormous. Gouts and KDB battling it out into turn 1 once again. Banging wheels, almost level pegging AlphaTauri and Scuderia Ferrari. Through Sector 1, it'll be the Ferrari up in the lead and out of sight. Out of sight, onto the gravel he goes, Gouts. And with that battle comes to a disappointing end. KDB comes out on top. P4 and a humongous gap which can't be made up for in a matter of a lap or two. So he will have to settle for P5, Gouts. Unfortunate for him. Davin, despite 12 seconds, not even 12 seconds, I think he's racked up about 15 seconds of time penalty so far. He's not giving up. He wants that lead. He wants the race lead ahead of the end of the race. So that's what he's fighting for up in his head. He says the lap times don't matter. I just want to be quicker on track. 3-second time penalties. How I take the lap doesn't matter. I just want to be quicker. 3-second time penalty once again for Davin. Rear kicks out just a bit along the main straight. They come. 7/10 the lap time as we begin. 7/10 the gap as we begin the final lap of this race. Time penalties, ladies and gentlemen. 15 seconds to his name. Hopefully he doesn't rack up one more in this final lap. You can see him edging closer, trying his best to keep that ERS steady ahead of this mighty battle coming our way. Danny Joe, 2 seconds off of these two in the lead, pushing to the limit. Davin, he just wants the race lead ahead of the end. So Envy, well insights for the race win itself. An interesting finish, ladies and gentlemen. Insights on lap number 29, the last lap of this spectacular race we've gotten to witness. You can see this McLaren being pushed to the limit by Davin. And he's going to try his best as he comes along sector 2. Now he needs to gain momentum because that race on the main straight, he's going to have very little time ahead of the line to make that pass. He's going to be waiting, biding his time. Sector 3 is opportunity. 1 minute 23.362 the lap time to be beaten for the fastest lap. Coming through from Mr. Wex, who's running P8. That's what he wanted. And along the final corner we come. Ambitious as he might have been, Davin, he's racked up too many time penalties. But he tries. He's going to get level pegging perhaps. But the real race winner insights, ladies and gentlemen, across the line. A photo finish perhaps only for the track position. Across the line he comes. Envy wins the social race at Qatar ahead of Season 7. And what this might mean heading into Season 7 of the Bwoah Racing League, I'll leave it up to y'all to drop in the chat, in the comments. What do you think is going to unravel in a season insights? Envy finishes P1. Danny Joe kept it as clean as he could. What could have been if he had kept it clean throughout is one of assumptions for now. P2, P3 for Dalvin, regardless of those time penalties. Mighty feat for him because he knew an enormous gap means an enormous risk can be taken. Wraps up the podium. Envy, Danny, Dalvin. KDB finishes P4 after mighty battles with Guts in the midfield, who settles for P5 after an unfortunate, runaway into the gravel. Horning tried his best to keep it clean, but regardless finished P6. P7 for Nabil after an unfortunate spin at the safety car restart, but still lots to see from the driver himself. He is one of the rookies heading into the Bwoah Racing League Season 7. And to wrap up the field itself, I presume down in P8 was Mr. Vex, who picked up the fastest lap time. Gets driver of the day, amazingly enough, as well to his name. But yeah, with that, folks, we wrap up the social race around the Losail International Circuit. An absolute treat at Qatar. And a lot to come, I'd say. A lot to come. Heading in to Season 7 itself. Track limits L, says Dalvin. Without a doubt, Dalvin pushed it to the limit and reaped dividends somehow. And ended up in on the podium regardless of penalties. So it goes to show credit where credit is due. All three of these drivers drove a mighty fine race. And I think even though we might not see Dalvin out on track, or maybe we'll see. Or we'll see him in the comms box, surely enough. And there you have it, folks. That is your top 8 drivers to finish the race. 2 retirements in the likes of Thunderbird with the voluntary retirement, and of course, unfortunate for Sickening to retire out on track in Sector 2, which brought out the full safety car. And not a rare sight in Bwoah Racing League, not a rare sight here at RoadRunner Racing Esports. Envy, your winner, your social race winner around Qatar. You can weave all the stories you want heading into the Season 7. But with that, we'll wrap it up. We got to see a peek into what the rookies will bring. What the what the rookies will bring and what the old guard might bring heading into Season 7. But with that, folks, we're going to wrap it up here today for the social race itself. It's been an absolute treat hosting this, as always. We'll see you again next weekend at 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. UTC for race number 1 of the Bwoah Racing League Season 7. If you haven't signed up yet, make sure you head into our socials. Links are in our bios, and I'll link it down below in the description as well. Join us. Get behind the wheel of one of these cars in the F123 game. I'll see you on the next race. Behind the mic, as always. Cheers, folks.